Welcome to today's web conference, U.S. Azure Partner Community Call for August. I'd like to turn it over to your first presenter, Nick Johnson, National PTS for Microsoft. Nick, you now have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, everybody, for joining today. It looks like we've got well over 200 partners dialed into this, and just really excited to have you with us. It feels like it's been a long time since we talked, but we took off the month of July because we were with many of you down at WPC. So for those of you that we got to meet down there, it was great to have you there. If you missed out, there's still opportunities to go and check out the WPC content. A lot of it's out on the MPN network, and if you look at some of our blog entries, there's some links as well to sessions that we thought were valuable or announcements that are meaningful to you. We're going to cover a few of those today, but we also have a packed agenda of brand new things to talk about. First thing, we are going to bring in an expert on our Azure Incentives program, and so in just a minute, Jenny Cordell is going to join us, and we'll take a look at some of those things. We've got a really cool new tool that's about to come out, and we're going to give you a sneak peek at that and how that's going to help you do enterprise mobility demos. We're going to take a look at some of the offerings that our friends in the partner services area have for you to get training for you and for your teams, and then we'll give you a preview of what we're going to look at next month. So if you're new to the community, don't forget, besides the call, there's some other ways you can join us. We do a newsletter at least once a month, and in that newsletter you're going to find a lot of really useful information, so feel free to sign up for that using the short link on the screen there. We also are very active on Yammer. We've got over 1,500 people in the Azure community alone on Yammer, so don't miss out the opportunity to be there, interact with folks from Microsoft and with your peers. Feel free to just use the links there to sign up. And then we also do blog entries, and we're going to actually be increasing the number of blog entries we do this year. We're going to be doing some new stuff with some PTSs that are out sort of in the real world, doing things with you as partners every day and sharing some of that learning from there. So we're going to be putting more out on the blog. We're really excited about that. So please join us in all those community activities. As far as what's been going on in the world, there's a few things that we wanted to highlight for you as partners that are sort of focused on Azure, things that you should be paying attention to if you haven't already. One is Azure Backup and Azure Site Recovery. You've probably heard of both of these features. There's been some new announcements in the last couple of months around these. This is one of the absolute easiest things to go out and implement and start driving consumption, especially if you're looking for consumption plans in your Azure accounts and trying to help your customers really get going on some of the stuff they've purchased. This is a great way to do it. Site Recovery is really a disaster recovery solution that allows you to back up entire machines, physical machines, virtual machines hosted both on VMware and on Hyper-V. That's right, I did say VMware and Hyper-V, so you can go out and implement that, and it allows you to fail over to Azure as your secondary site, which is a really, really nice option. It's low cost. Alongside of that, we've got Azure Backup. And Azure Backup is more about document retention and storage. It allows you from any client server, even client machines in Windows 10, to point at Azure and in a secure way that you maintain the certificate to, allow you to actually store that data up in Azure and then recover it back to that computer. Or you can recover it back to another computer should the primary one go offline. So spend some time with each of those. Again, super easy ways to start driving consumption with your customers if you haven't done that yet. The next thing we want to call out is the Operations Management Suite. This really was sort of shown at the Ignite conference back in May. If you haven't gone out and tried this yet, I strongly encourage you to. It's just Microsoft.com/OMS. Sign up for a trial account. You can connect it over to your Azure trial account that you get with your partner IURs. And go ahead and start monitoring your own stuff and get a feel for how easy it is to set this up, and then go help your customers start set it up, because it's really going to give them some insights into the product, into all the different things they've got going on in their world, and it's going to show them how easy it is to manage things. But it doesn't manage just Azure. It has direct connections all the way back into System Center if you want to manage on-premise worlds, and you can actually go out and manage Amazon as well. So if you're looking to get insight into what's going on across the environments, OMS is a great way to do that. And then the last thing we want to call out, and I don't even have a screenshot of this because it's so new, but is the Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics. It sounds really complex and fancy. It actually couldn't be easier. So if you haven't spent any time on advanced threat analytics, I encourage you to go read up on it. There's a whole page out on Microsoft.com about it. At its core, it allows you to begin to monitor in a very, very low impact way what's going on in an entire environment, both on-premises and in the cloud. And it begins to watch for anomalies. It monitors Active Directory logins to see if there's any patterns that change that would potentially indicate a risk or a threat on a network, maybe of a breach or some sort of a hacker has gotten in or some sort of malware. So strongly encourage you to check out Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics. So those are just sort of three things for the community that we have been looking at in the last few weeks that we think are really great. And with that, I want to invite our first guest onto the call, and her name is Jenny Cordell. And Jenny is the person who leads our Azure incentives for the U.S. And so, without any further ado, Jenny, please kick us off. And I've got your first slide up on the screen for you.
All right, fantastic. So, thank you, Nick, and thank you guys for this opportunity to speak to you about the FY16 Azure Incentives Program. There's going to be a bit of information that's thrown your way throughout the call. So specifically to Azure Incentives, if you have any follow-ups, please join me on Yammer with any additional Q&A, as well as I have a dedicated Cloud Partner Incentives office hours every month where you'll just get an overview today, but I drill down on this program along with the Office 365 incentives during my office hours. So invite you to join me on those. So with that, let me start by presenting to you the FY16 Azure Incentives Program design. We kick this off first of this month, and the eligibility, which has changed from last year. So last year it was a ring-fenced group of people. This year we're allowing all partners that have the cloud platform competency at either silver or gold to be eligible in this program. So that's what you see in number 2. So just level setting on the purpose. So as you know, Azure is a key strategic focus for Microsoft this year and beyond. And this program is all about rewarding our partners that are working with customers to drive Azure consumption. So just want to be clear, this isn't for partners that are transacting the Azure. It's for our partners that are driving the solutions and services of Azure and ramping up that customer consumption. A couple of key things to know about this program. It's for customers that have purchased on a web direct or enterprise agreement, meaning that if you have, let's say, your own partner EA and you're providing managed services and slicing out part of your agreement to customers, that specific process won't be eligible under this program. So it has to be end customer purchased on a web direct or enterprise agreement to be eligible. And it's also available on CASA and EES agreements, which are essentially enterprise agreements for schools. Some other things that you have to know is in number 3. So as I said, this launched August 1st. It is based on Cloud Platform competency for eligibility. And we are having this program as it's designed in market from August 1st until next September. So we're committing to a 14-month payout for each subscription that's eligible with a max cap of up to $120,000 during that 14-month duration. Going over to the last section. So the rate that we're paying you on is calculated off of the consumption revenue that's generated by the customer, and that's at a rate of 20%. And these incentives payments are paid out quarterly. And on the next slide, we'll go over the process of how you work with your customer to be recognized as the partner that's working with that customer, called the Digital Partner of Record process. So what you see here is a high-level overview of how to work with your customer that you're driving the Azure consumption for. on being recognized as the partner of record. So just some quick historical context. For those of you guys that participated in FY15 and earlier, you guys got attached using the PSX tool, which was a bit administratively burdensome, a bit manual, because you had to register in PSX, you had to log it, you had to track it, you had to close it. What we've launched with the FY16 refresh is a digital process where the customer that you're working with will go into their Azure Account Center. They'll click on the subscription that you, the partner, are working on them with, and you'll give them your partner ID, which they'll enter into the partner information box. So once they do that, then there's an instant association of you, the partner, to that specific customer's subscription. So there's some great resources on not just this process for you guys to review internally with your teams, but a one-pager that you can send to your customer that outlines the steps in a little more detail than what I have summarized on the slide, as well as the value prop to the customer for why they should take these 3 steps to associate you as their partner of record. So that resource, as well as a few others, can be found on various sites. So let me give you a quick lay of the land on the various resources that are out there for you to be able to understand this program, to be able to operationalize, and where to go for key insights. So over on the left-hand side, we have some key assets for you guys, including the incentives guide, which just goes over the program and business policies. The implementation guide, which is operations focused. It has information on how to set up your payment, when the payment cycle is, that sort of information. There's also the MPN agreement, which you have to review and sign off on prior to participating and earning in the program, as well as the digital POR resources, including the demo video and how to get set up in the portal for you to track your forecasted earnings. Because it is paid out quarterly, we do want to still give you that monthly insight into what your customers are consuming and what you can forecast your payment to be at the end of that quarter. So all of those assets I just went over, the links to where you can find them are on the right-hand side. And if you ever get stuck finding something or understanding something, do reach out to me on Yammer. It's the last link that you see on the right-hand side. It's really your consolidated one-stop shop for any Q&A you have on any of the incentives programs, as well as the U.S. local investment programs. So hand in hand with readiness is support. And as I said, if you guys are in a bind, just reach out to me on Yammer. I'm happy to kind of play traffic cop and direct you to where you need to go. But if you also have this slide handy, you can get to the support team to address the specific question you have about your program participation. So if it's you received an earnings statement and you want to reconcile with maybe what you forecasted out, the numbers don't tick and tie, you can reach out to the MPN support team using that link. Once again, just another plug for Yammer. Think of it as your one-stop shop. It's also where I communicate things like when my next office hours is going to be, any meeting decks and recordings from those office hours, as well as I'm starting to compile frequently asked questions that I'm hearing on Yammer and my office hours. So it could be a really great resource for you guys to understand the ins and outs of the program better as we continue on in FY16. As well, we have an online dashboard where you can track your customers that have assigned you as partner of record. And if you run into any issues there, you would also just go to the link where your dashboard is and support a ticket. As I mentioned, the gating eligibility for FY16 is needing a cloud platform competency. If you are new to Azure and you don't have a performance-based cloud platform competency yet, the link there for MPN competency, third one from the bottom, will give you an overview of the performance thresholds as well as the other requirements to attain the competency. And then the last two links, so program overview, things like overview decks, program guides, anything that you'd want to know about this incentives program can be found on our Microsoft Partner Network page. And then lastly, just reiterating where we post the forecast reports as well as your payout statements. It'll be through the Channel Incentives portal, also known as CHIP, and there is a link to that as well.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. We did have some questions that came into the chat window, and I think what we'll do is we'll just manage those and reply via the chat window over the next few minutes so that we can move on to the next section in the presentation.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks again, guys. Back to you.
Cool, thanks. And with that, I want to turn the floor over to Thomas Willingham. Thomas is a technical product manager, and he is here to show us a brand new tool that's going to be coming out that I think is going to be super helpful for partners. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Nick. Let me go ahead and load my slides here so we can get started. So enterprise mobility. If you attended WPC, you probably saw a brief glimpse of this environment if you attended Adam Bresson's session. The demo that he demoed from this environment. We know in the past that partners have wanted the ability to have demo resources that we set up for them. With this new environment, we're going to enable that exact thing. So this is the Enterprise Mobility demo. If you're familiar with Microsoft Office demos, we're extending and building onto that site. So when we step back, we were thinking about it, and we thought about the fact, how can we really enable partner and internal success and helping people move forward using enterprise mobility? And when we looked at the Microsoft Office demo environment, we really appreciated that self-service environment, the ability to provision a demo tenant, and the ability to demo not only the IT pro, the worker, the end worker experience, the user experience, but how do you also demo the admin experience? So the end-to-end experience across all the enterprise mobility solutions. And when I'm talking about all the enterprise mobility solutions, I'm talking about identity and access management. I'm talking about information protection, mobile device and application management, desktop vert. So the ability to showcase and demo all of these technologies together. We've recently started to change how we're talking about enterprise mobility. If you're familiar with enterprise mobility at all, you're probably familiar with our PCIT, so managing users instead of the infrastructure itself. Now we're kind of stepping back a little bit further, and we're starting to talk about the solutions that we effectively deal with as opposed to discrete technologies. So let's talk about those three scenarios very quickly. Managing mobile productivity. One thing that our customers want to see is, how do I get started? I have this new enterprise mobility solution, or I'm thinking about this enterprise mobility solution. What can I do with it? as I'm looking at the solution, I'm not looking at discrete features. MDM enables secure cut and paste within the managed applications. That's interesting, but what overall solution am I solving here? So our three key scenarios kind of hit on those. Again, manage mobile productivity. This is how users get started. How do they get enrolled? How do they use secure email? How do they get access to mobile application management? How do they use and enroll their mobile devices to get productive? The second scenario that we're going to deal with in this environment, or that we'll have solutions for, are deploy and manage all of your apps using enterprise mobility. So with these three key scenarios, you're going to see step-by-step walkthrough guides that have both talk tracks and click tracks that show you what you can do to promote these scenarios. So the second scenario really talks about how you give customers access, or users access, to the applications on their various devices. We'll talk about access to SaaS applications, web-based applications. We'll talk about access to native applications using the company portal. And we'll also talk about access to Windows-based applications. Then finally, comprehensive protection of corporate data with EMS. So this talks about how identity is so tightly integrated, security is so tightly integrated into enterprise mobility, and how you really kind of dig in to some of those security features. Besides these three key scenarios, we know people still have interest in specific technology areas. They want to dig into information protection, so they want to look at Azure Rights Management Services. They want to look at desktop virtualization, Azure Remote App. They want to look at identity and access management, so Azure Active Directory Premium. And then finally, mobile device and application management using Microsoft Intune. Now notice for the three key scenarios, I didn't even talk about products. I was talking about more the solutions that benefit our customers. And then the 4 solution walkthroughs enable you to dive deeper into the specific technologies. And again, walkthrough guides will be available for each of these areas. So provisioning the EMS demo. If you're familiar with Microsoft demos at all, you've gone through the site, you have gone to the site, you've selected the partner area, and from there you've selected how you want to provision the tenant. So you provide the tenant for enterprise mobility, and then from there we'll provision that tenant with 100 users, and these 100 users will have, there'll be an admin user, there'll be a hero user that you'll be able to walk through that's already set up. You'll have a first day user where this is the first day, nothing's set up, and you'll be able to set things up for them. One thing that we're really trying to do with this demo environment is ensure it's modular. So steps aren't dependent, or blocks of steps aren't dependent on each other. If you just want to demo the user experience, that's fine, you can do so. Or if you just want to demo the admin experience, you can also do that. You don't have to demo the admin experience before you demo the user experience. So I've kind of talked about some stuff here. Now let's really start taking a look at what this looks like and what you'll see as you go through this environment. So this is a mock-up of what you're going to see and what you're going to go through as you create the environment. So create a new Enterprise Mobility Suite tenant. You'll give it a tenant name. You'll give it your account email. You'll give it your Azure subscription ID, some additional information, and then create my account. This will start telling you information about the provisioning process, how things are going, how things are working. Once this is finished, you'll have a tenant that's available with full enterprise mobility trial licensing for 90 days. So you'll have a full setup with the full enterprise mobility suite plus Azure Remote App that's available for 90 days. So now let's take a look at what a fully provisioned tenant looks like. So here's my fully provisioned tenant. I have my Active Directory structure here, and I have my Azure Remote App structure here. So if I scroll down and take a look at Active Directory, go into my Active Directory structure, users. So these are my fully provisioned users that are available in this environment. When you look at the scripts, they'll walk you through, use this user, perform these steps. It will tell you what users that you need to use for a given scenario. We also have a list of groups associated, and then these are groups that are available to be used in the environment. What you'll see for these groups is that this also works with some of the SaaS applications that are available. So there'll be a list of some SaaS applications. So you can see this is a fully featured, fully provisioned environment. Now, when I mentioned 90-day provisioning, that the licensing is available for 90 days, some people step back and kind of question, well, 90 days, I'm just getting started in the tenant, and then the licensing is going to expire and I'll have to get a new one. If you notice as I'm demoing here, this is a fully featured environment. The idea isn't you provision the environment and then when it's provisioned, you go in and perform another 4 or 5 hours worth of customization in it. The idea is once the tenant is provisioned, you can immediately get to work and start using this rich infrastructure that has a lot of examples and scenarios already built in. Now, we do understand that people are going to want to do some customization of the environment. And for some subsequent phases, we're actually looking at, well, okay, so how do we export settings to be imported to the next tenant? So once you have things set up the way you want it set up, you export those settings. The next time you provision the new tenant, you import your settings, and all of that will be available. Kind of what we're working with there is how far or what settings do we export? Obviously, the settings are important, but what data do we export, if any? This is where it gets kind of tricky because if you start looking at exporting data, now we can start getting into gigs and gigs of export. So this is the Active Directory premium structure that you see. And if I come over here to licenses, notice here's my Enterprise Mobility Suite with 100 active units, again available for 90 days. So another part of this tenant is Microsoft Intune. So Intune will also be fully provisioned. Here's the dashboard. I am associated with let me get that. It wouldn't be exciting or real time if we didn't have some kind of hiccup here. Here we go. It's coming up. And this little kind of hiccup here just shows you I'm working against a live environment. This isn't recorded. This isn't Memorex. This is an actual live environment that I'm working against. So here I see groups. Here's the groups that have been created. I can create groups. There'll be some policies that are available that are created. So again, a very full-featured, rich environment. Go back to Active Directory. Rights management, there'll also be rights management component for information protection. It's active. There'll be some scenarios that you can walk through associated with rights management. Finally, the last component is the Azure Remote App subscription. So for Azure Remote App, we're creating a cloud deployment for you. So a entirely cloud-based deployment that will have some apps published. So there'll be some apps published. This one doesn't have it set up, but there'll be some users associated with the system that you'll be able to use from a client. And again, you'll be able to demo this. One of the benefits of this is using your own mobile devices. You'll be able to connect into these systems since licensing is live. So I'll be able to use, as a demoer, I'll be able to use any iPad device, any Android device, any Windows device that I have at my disposal to demonstrate how this environment works. We are scheduled to have this available the beginning of October, so it will be available soon. We're still in the process of building it out. As you can see, there's some really exciting opportunity here, and we are in the process of, and we are interested in receiving feedback. So we want to make sure that this demo environment that we're releasing not only is full-featured, but has the right features and functionality to help the field and our partners be successful. So at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Nick, and we can start answering questions about the environment. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, Thomas, thank you. And based on the number of questions I'm seeing come in here, there's a lot of excitement around this tool. There's a couple questions that have been answered. One that's still out there is, can a user export all of their settings, like policies and alerts and stuff, and then import them into their new or like a non-demo tenant once they're ready to move from demo to real live production?
Okay, so at this time, that's not a live feature. That's something that we're still in progress, and we're targeting V2 because we're still trying to figure out what the scope of those settings are going to be. So we don't have that yet. That's more conceptual feature than an actual feature at this time, as we're still trying to figure out scope.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Looks like all the other questions have been answered at this point. Oh, there's one other. Is there any type of a preview program to get into before the official launch?
We do have a limited preview program. We can collect some names. It's going to be very limited initially. If we can have, Nick, who would be the point of contact to email to collect those names?
They can reach out to me via Yammer. Is probably the best thing. So I'm Nick Johnson. You just look me up on the Yammer group, and I'll put the slide up at the end again to show the address for the Yammer site. So you can look me up and just send me a message via that.
Okay, and just to set expectation, it's a very limited preview. So like I said, we are targeting the the beginning of October to have this released, so very soon. So I don't want everybody coming in thinking that they'll be able to get part of the preview, because to set expectation, honestly, you probably won't.
Okay, that's totally fair. Thanks for the input there. But yeah, if anybody has any questions or they want to get more info, send it to me. I'll collect all the names, we'll pass it on, and then we'll definitely do what we can. Otherwise, thanks for your patience too. This is obviously, as you can tell, is going to be a really cool tool for everybody to use. Another question that came in, will we be able to create Azure RMS policies in the demo solution?
Azure RMS policies, it's a full-featured tenant, so anything that you would be able to do with Azure RMS normally, you'll be able to do in this environment.
Perfect. Good. Let's see if there's any other questions.
There was one more that I wasn't able to answer yet.
Okay.
So is there a cost to the partner to provisioning on EM demo tenant? There is no cost to provision the demo tenant. Is trial based. There might be some costs on Azure consumption costs that you can use your partner credits to offset, but not for all of the for most of the use of the demo environment. You're not going to have any cost.
That is great news. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Question from Tim: will the facilitator guides actually be available for download?
Absolutely.
Perfect. And then is there going to be a limit to the number of demo tenants any one partner can provision concurrently?
I don't think we're anticipating any limits. There won't be any restrictions on our side.
Okay, good. That's good news. And then is the tool actually integrated with the CIE, the former MEC tool, or is this a separate endeavor?
It is separate than the CIE. We're trying to inject the same content that we're injecting into this environment, into the CIE, so it's a parallel work that we're doing, because currently the Office demo platform and the CIE Mac are different platforms too. So we're trying to map as best as we can to deliver the same content, even though it's separate platforms.
Okay, great. Perfect. All right, there's still a few questions coming in the chat window. We'll go ahead and take those there. I do want to just thank you guys for this presentation, and I think you can tell by the number of questions that partners are really excited about this. Is there going to be a place for partners to send feedback once they get live on this to sort of capture and help improve the tool?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And one other thing, I just kind of answered this in the chat window, is these are only 90-day trial tenants, and they're not scoped to be customer, like POCs or trials for customers. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is the demo tenant, the licensing does expire after 90 days.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you. Great. Well, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to type them into the chat window. I think Thomas and Mara are going to hang around here and answer those, so thank you for that. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Phil Meadows. And Phil comes from our Partner Services organization. You may know them as the group that they deliver on all the support benefits that you get as partners. So when you qualify as a silver or gold or even a MAPS partner, you get what's called advisory hours. And those advisory hours are basically a currency that allow you to come in and participate in a lot of stuff that we have going on for partners. And Phil is one of the guys who helps lead that effort. So Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us what's been going on and how partners can take advantage of that.
All right, cool. Thanks, Nick. My name is Phil Meadows. I'm a lead partner technical consultant over at Partner Services, and I'm responsible for cloud platform, which includes Azure IaaS as well as our hybrid cloud piece. Right now, I wanted to focus in on some of the trainings that we have around Azure Infrastructure as a Service. We have sort of a cardinal 4 that we regularly repeat. The partner practice enablement will be something that you'll see on a monthly basis, and the others will be available each season, each quarter. But I wanted to drill into sort of our key 4 IaaS enablement pieces. And these are online webinars. They're scheduled through the PLC. I'll have some links for you at the end where you can go and see details on each of these offerings and then drill down into the individual delivery schedules per region. And they're a great way to get people ramped in technologies without necessarily having to get on site. All of it done through webinar format. And the first of these is the Partner Practice Enablement. Now, some of you might be familiar with the PPE boot camps, which are on-site events where consultants can come and really do a deep dive in Azure IaaS and get to that level 200/level 300 knowledge where they can start envisioning and creating solutions in Azure Virtual Machines, Azure Networking. What we've done at Partner Services is we've taken that boot camp and we've spread it out over a series in a week where technical consultants and various technical stakeholders at partner organizations can attend online. And so we run 5 sessions, 4 hours each over the course of a week. And during that time, we do an introduction into Azure, and then we jump into virtual machines, networking, Active Directory, some of the management and monitoring capabilities. We do a little bit of Azure PaaS, as it is a complementary piece to many Azure infrastructure solutions. And we also talk about some scenarios around SQL Server and SharePoint. So this is a really great way to kind of baseline your knowledge in Azure, especially if you're new to Azure, or really if you just want a breadth look at solutions in Microsoft Azure infrastructure. So I highly recommend it. It's definitely worth the time. The second piece that's kind of complementary to the PPE workshop is the Practice Accelerator for Microsoft Azure IaaS. So Practice Accelerators are really designed around enabling partners in some key scenarios that they can leverage at customers to really get them sort of rapidly accelerated into a customer deployment. So we've broken this into 2 sessions. The first session is going to deep dive into storage and networking solutions. So some of the storage solutions are going to be backup, but also some of the hybrid storage solutions that are available through StoreSimple. So StoreSimple is an appliance that you have on premises that can utilize Azure storage as a backend for cold data retention. It's a great way of using the cloud to expand your data retention capabilities. And then the Azure Networking module really takes the baseline that you have in the PPE on networking and goes deep on certain scenarios like creating hybrid networking through express routes, talking about more complex configurations like network security groups that allow you to really specialize and go deep on networking solutions for individual deployments in Azure. And then the second day is really where we jump into security, identity and access, and also open source. Open source is a big part of Azure, and we wanted to make sure that we give you an idea of the kind of solutions that are getting deployed now, open source solutions that are getting deployed now in Azure IaaS. And so we jump into some Oracle, Linux, and SAP scenarios in Azure, talk about some of the deployments that people have already made in terms of case studies, and sort of give you a path to talk about OSS in Azure. Now, as Nick mentioned actually at the open of the event, Azure Site Recovery and backup are sort of key technologies that are really taking off in the partner space. And Azure Site Recovery has really democratized disaster recovery. It's no longer a solution that's only affordable and implementable by enterprises, multinational corporations. Azure Site Recovery allows you to go to a small business and protect 5 VMs by giving them an off-site disaster recovery location in Azure, and to bring data retention and recovery solutions through Azure Backup at really quite a favorable price structure. So it really has extended the ability to use offsite backup and disaster recovery solutions for the common man, I guess. So we have a solution accelerator built around this. It's a single session, half-day session, and we delve into not only scenarios like backup to Azure, but also some of the site-to-site scenarios that are enabled. So with VMM implemented, you can use Azure Site Recovery to orchestrate a failover between sites. And there's a lot of really interesting, robust features around SAN replication that have just been released in Azure Site Recovery. But also we talk a little bit about the physical and VMware failover and migration capabilities, which are the portfolio of Azure Site Recovery is rapidly expanding, and it's very interesting to get locked in and looking at those now. And then our last piece is an Ask the Expert session, and this is really more of an open forum. We maintain it every month. We usually have a topic. One of our topics is usually what's new in Azure IaaS, just because the landscape of Azure infrastructure services really does change quite rapidly. And so we like to maintain just a regular sync where partners can come in and ask on topic and, you know, off topic as well. Anything about their sales, compete, design, deployment, and best practices for Azure, and work with our consultants. And these also typically lead to just some advisory services. You know, if you have a question that gets answered in the Ask the Expert session, you can go one-on-one with a consultant and kind of deep dive into the solution and see what the best implementation will be. So with that, how do you contact us? How do you get a hold of these services? We have a series of aka.ms links that are available. I'm responsible for Azure, so I'll promote the Partner Technical Services Azure line. But we do have a core set of Windows 10 and Enterprise Mobility offerings that I did not cover, and actually I think would be of great interest to this audience, judging from the reaction to the EMS demo. And so please go to the Partner Technical Services Win 10 EMS link as well. And you can see we have Enterprise Mobility. We also have a practice enablement camp for Enterprise Mobility. And we also have some offerings around getting started with Enterprise Mobility. So those will definitely be of interest as well. So thank you for your time. Please feel free to explore the links here, as well as you can contact Partner Services All Up just with aka.ms/mysupport. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Nick for some wrap-up, and thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Phil. A couple questions just popped in about where can we get the slides, or is this available in a PDF format and all that stuff. The answer is we are going to post the slides probably in about 15 minutes here over on our Yammer site. So let me bring up that URL again, so that if you want to go over and join us on Yammer, that's going to be the place to do it. So it's right here on the slide, right in the middle there. It's if you've never signed up for Yammer before, do the aka.ms/join Yammer. And then if you want to get specific to our community, that's the aka.ms/Yammer Azure, all one word. And so just sign up there. Feel free, if you ever have questions, post them out there, tag one of us, and we're very active on that community, so we'd love to have you out there. So we will post the slides there, and then as soon as a recording of this call is available, we will also post that out there. That can take a day or two sometimes to get that all processed, but we'll get that out there, so if you've got other people in your organization that you want to share that with, you'll be able to. With that, I just want to thank you guys for coming today. In just a minute, we are going to post a survey link, and I want you to be able to give us your feedback on this call. What do you want to see on future calls? What's helpful to you? So please take a minute and fill that out. Next month, we're going to be doing, our whole month is going to be focused on things related to Azure and networking. So I think we're working on trying to get somebody to come in and talk about ExpressRoute and what that means and how you as partners can take advantage of that. So if there's other things you'd like to know about networking, again, I'm Nick Johnson. Send them to me on Yammer, and I will make sure that we try to get those integrated into what we're going to talk about, either in our blogs, our newsletter, or on the call here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Kim to help us close out for today. Thank you all for your time.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Ladies and gentlemen, your feedback is important. We hope that you found today's information helpful. Please take a minute and let us know by completing a short survey. Please click on the messages button to find a link to the survey. And you can access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered via email 72 hours post-conference. And I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters, Nick, Jenny, Thomas, Maura, and Phil. This concludes today's web conference. You may now disconnect.